Yes, good day, everyone. You're welcome once again to Nigerian Diaspora TV. And today we have a women's program empowering the Nigerian woman. And today we're looking at women in politics. And our speaker for today is Ada Enemwa, the CEO of the AIDS Foundation. You're welcome to the program, Ada.
Thank you.
So you can go ahead, over to you right now.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ada Enemwa from the AIDS. Today we're talking about women's participation in politics. As you can see, I mean, this is 2020 and we're still talking about this. So what is women's participation in politics? Nosa today will help us with our PowerPoint slides, and we're going to analyze why it's important that we have to include women in politics. So next, can we get the slides, Nosa?
Okay, just give me a minute.
I hope everybody is fine. These are trying times. Can we make the slide bigger? Basically make it full screen. Yes, yay, we got it. Okay, so next slide, please. This is women's participation in politics, of course, courtesy of the AIDS. So this is the woman of the season. Talking about women's participation in politics, we could just say that this woman right here is the greatest, the woman that's holding now the greatest political office in the land, if not the world. I mean, if we can just call it. Kamala Harris. She's the wife, she's the mother, and she's the first female vice president-elect of the United States of America. Yay, that's a win for a woman in America and the win for all the women in the world. Because usually when we talk about affirmative action and all those kind of things, people will always be like, but even America self never gets president. And you people for Africa, they find presidency. So more wins for us women. And we celebrate you today, Ms. Kamala Harris, and we celebrate all women trying to get there, that will get there, and the ones that have made way for us to get there today. Next slide, please, Nosa. So, first of all, before we say anything about politics, we'll talk about family. We all know that family is the primary agent of socialization. You know, a child is born into a family before they first go into the world or into organizations or anything. Individual families, of course, we know, make up a nation. So basically, because of the intrinsic sense of perception, intuition, empathy in both extended and nuclear families and local communities as a whole, women are usually the uniting force. So I'm Igbo. Nosa, can you turn the video back to me? I'm Igbo, and in Igbo land, we have something they call the Umuada. So I remember that I think about 1992 or 1993, my local community had issues of the caste system. They call it the Osu system. Yeah, they call it the Osu system. And in that system, if you are born as a slave, like, you know, you're practically given to the gods. You can't marry a freeborn, those kinds of things. I can't really explain it well, but it's a traditional kind of caste system. And for years, many people fell in love, but then they couldn't marry because it's either the man was an Osu or the woman was an Osu. These people were people that maybe their great-grandfathers or something like that got into trouble and ran to the deity for protection. So because of that, the community completely write the whole lineage off. So like you have fourth, third, fifth generation suffering for what they don't understand. So at some point, the Umuadas, the women of the community, came together and said, you know what, we're tired of our children suffering. You know, then they took matters to the Igwe Council, which is the king of the community, and talks began on how to end the caste system in my community. because I like to give examples using my life, you know. So I know this because my grandfather was the prime minister of the land as at that time, or the regent of the land. And, you know, then there were all these talks and talks and talks and talks. And finally, sometime in 92, 93-ish, early 90s, the caste system was abolished in my village. So you see how women can help to take away things that, you know, communities can say, oh, it cannot be done. But women do it. Same happened with the Aba riot of 1928, where a certain woman revolted against the colonial government for taxing the community too much. And from her, she started giving palms. They started exchanging pamphlets, and before they knew it, 10,000 women gathered. Then there was no cell phone, no PO, no mailbox, no text message. But these women were able to organize themselves, and they had over 10,000 women come and riot the colonial masters, to the point that these colonial masters had to reduce the taxes. So these are the kinds of things that when women unite, they can do. And these are things that build community. And when they fix these kinds of things, what happens? Everybody benefits. It's not just women that benefit. So that's why we say that because of their sense of perception, their intuition, their empathy, they are usually uniting forces in families and local communities. So the question is, why can't they actually get political? Like, why can't we have better numbers of women in political offices to drive our failing nation forward? So if a woman can mother and unite a whole family, of course she can mother a nation. Women birth and nurture scientists and all kinds of things. So if a person, some are even not educated, and they're able to nurture people that change the world. So like mothers, government, the job of a government in the first place is to provide for, to care for, to love her citizens. People ask me, but it's fathers that provide. In the world today, mothers provide too. They provide, they go to farms, they make clothing and all that. It's almost like you do everything now, and you just have to raise this family. So that's also what governments do. Governments have to love and care for and provide for their citizens to have a good environment to thrive, so that the economy can be better and everybody can be better. So who best to be part of that table, who best to sit on that table where decisions are made on how the community will go from point 0 to point 10? Of course, a mother that nurtures a family understands that, okay, if we were going to use 10 naira to nurture this family, we can use 20 naira to nurture 2 families, and then that goes on and on. Okay, next slide, Nosa. This is just an introductory slide, why we have to say, okay, from women, we're going to mothers, from mothers, women as a whole, and then why it's important to sit at the political table. Okay, so the second slide, no, I think that's, we're going to slide 4 now. Nosa? Yeah. Next slide, not the full. Okay, so previous slide. Previous slide. Okay. No, not this one. This one, yes. Okay, so we're talking now. Next slide. Slide 4. Yes. So now we're on women's political impact. So since the new democracy, no woman has been elected as president, vice president, or governor in Nigeria. Isn't that funny? The one woman that we had was Virgie Etiaba. She was a governor of Anambra State for 6 months. But that was because her principal was impeached. And after 6 months, her principal came back to power, and she had to vacate the seat. In 2006, a national gender policy was formulated to promote a 35% affirmative action for women. That policy demanded that 35% of women be involved in all governance processes. But you know what? Today, let's take the President Buhari's administration, for example. Out of the 43 ministers in power today, we only have 7 that are women, and that accounts for 16.28% of the cabinet. Meanwhile, we have a law that says that 35% should be women. So this 16.28% that's currently in power is well below the 35% suggested by affirmative action. So the question is, are we going forward or are we going backward? This figure, of course, completely depicts the general state of women's participation in Nigerian politics. I mean, isn't it funny that we have this law, but then, the number one cabinet, the Federal Executive Council, doesn't even have it in place. Like, it's not even being practiced. I once said that to somebody, of course, somebody of the other gender, and then he said, well, aren't you guys lucky that it's 7? Before it was even nothing. But we're not going to continue to say, oh, okay, because we got 16% this time, we should be grateful. No, we should. Even 35% is still not 50-50. 35% will still give the patriarchal strength. So why not just give us the 35%? Next slide, Nosa. So why must women participate in politics? We say that women must participate in politics to balance power and ideas. Human Rights Watch once said that the more closely government represents the composition of society as a whole, the more stable its policies are likely to be. When you represent the composition of a society as a whole, we're talking about gender composition, which is male and female. We're talking about old and young. We're talking about people living with disabilities. You have to be able to, try as much as possible for your government to just have equality and fairness when people even look at it on the face of it. Because when they come to make decisions, or when they come to bring up ideas on how to make the community thrive, everybody's input will be whatever they come up with will be a balanced idea, because you have a diverse group of people that brought about these ideas. So basically, equality of sexes in politics will mean an inclusive government, meaning that our government must run an inclusive government. So what is an inclusive government? An inclusive government serves and engages all people, doesn't matter what sexes they are. It serves and engages all people. And an inclusive government is accountable and responsive. Accountable meaning that you have to account to both male and female. Whatever you're doing must be accountable to them. And you must be responsive. You must respond to their needs, because nobody is bigger than anybody else, because everybody contributes to national development or community development. So an inclusive government must be accountable and responsive to all members of the society. So, and when you do that, when you run an inclusive government, you have unity and progress. So for unity and progress, Nigeria must run an inclusive government. Next slide, Nosa. Another reason women must participate in politics is because if they participate, we increase the implementation strength of policies. What do we mean by implementation strength? Implementation strength is the quantity of a program strategy that is carried out at the field or population level, and it incorporates some elements commonly considered as part of the quality of service delivery as well. This is coming from Johns Hopkins University. Implementation strength really means that, how like our National Assembly, they'll always, pass these bills and all that. Trust me, a lot of the injustices that are practiced in the Nigerian, can you turn the screen back to me, please? A lot of the injustices that are practiced in the Nigerian in the Nigerian society, there are actually bills that have been, converted to laws and all that, opposes all this. But because people don't know, those bills are just there. The laws are there. People don't know their rights, so things go wrong over and over and over again, and nobody questions it. But when you have a balance of power, there are things that, the male testosterone and ego and everything will overlook, that the women, because of the way that they are built, they will pick those up. And when they pick those up, they have to make sure that some of those laws are actually brought to book, that that some of those wrongdoings in the society, that no, it's not going to happen. Let's say that we have 1 billion earmarked to build this hospital. Most mothers, you give them 5,000 naira to prepare a pot of soup. They might take 1,000 or 500 out of it, but your pot of soup will be ready when you come back. That same thing happens when a motherly figure is in charge of, trying to build a community. They'll handle it the same way they handle their family. So when you have a male and female, it will increase the implementation strength of whatever policy or budgeting that you've come up with. So basically, our point is that with both sexes aligned in the developmental agenda, the implementation and sustainability of policies enacted by the government will be increased for the greater good of the community, of course. Next slide, Bosa. How is everybody doing? Bosa, next slide. Sorry, guys, we have to keep sharing the screen. Okay, so the next is the women's political barriers. We always say, okay, women should engage in political this, political space, political this. But we all know. We're on slide 7. No, sir, slide 7. Yes, this one. Okay, so why must women? No. Slide 7, the next one. Just next. Hello? I can't hear you. Yes.
The next one, or this?
Next one. So, of course, we have political barriers that make women not really available for this participation in politics. We have these barriers. And one of them is family restriction. So, we have to start from the primary agent of socialization first, and that's family. Some families are skeptical about possible alteration of the patriarchal society's superiority of the sexes, meaning that they don't just want the women to overshadow the men in the family, So what they do, because of the things that they do, they prefer their female words to be seen and not heard. So you just sit, they find ways to make you just there, especially being a girl child. So this restriction translates to giving the females less opportunity to thrive and compete in the political space. So it can be, you might have a father that doesn't really, believe in investing in you as the girl child. You might have a husband that doesn't really want the wife to overshadow him in the family or in the society. So as a result, you're asked to sit at home. And of course, as an obedient child, you just sit at home, and whatever ideas you have that could have helped the society thrive, that can never be heard or implemented. So those things are, huge barriers. And that's family after family. That's actually, it's not just some. And education doesn't have anything to do with it, because I've talked to a lot of educated men, and they are like, well, it doesn't really even matter. Basic education is enough for the girl child. at some point she gets married and that's it, because your primary job in this life is to have children, which is okay, but then almost unfortunate. Next slide, please, Nusa. The next barrier that women have is lack of education, of course. Have you ever heard this phrase that Nusa, can you turn the have you guys ever heard this phrase? A lot of people will be mad at me for saying this, that women's education ends in kitchen. Like when I was really young, I once had this debate about women's education ends in kitchen. Like, of course, our group won the debate, because we were able to argue our case that no, our education doesn't end in kitchen. And I'll give a personal example too. When I first came to Nigeria from the US, and then this guy was like, you went to America to go to school. Are you serious? So your father paid all that money? Hey, that was a real capital flight though. Then I didn't really understand what capital flight meant, but of course now I do. Meaning that all the money where they don't use to pay my school fees na capital flight. Anyway, sex-based stereotyping plagues the Nigerian education sector till today. Sex-based stereotypes, you'll be surprised. Some families rather invest in their male children's education than the female. Unfortunately, that's true. Even if they're investing in the female, the female has to go to a lesser school, like, a less expensive school. I know a lot of friends that, their brothers will come abroad to study, but then their sisters go to the local universities, and you ask them, they say that's the way their father wants it. Because, of course, sending the women to go to school there is capital flight. That money, when you finish investing in the girl, she will marry into a family, and that money has gone to the family. Isn't that very unfortunate? So you mean to tell me that the money Okonjo Iweala's father used to train her to do, and now today she's DG of WTO, is capital flight, eh? Very interesting. Some cultural and religious groups campaign against educating the female child past a certain age. I think I've kind of discussed this before, talking about when a girl is 12, she needs to get married. So basically, you might get basic education, nursery school, blah, 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 but at 12, 15, why is she still at home chopping my money? When she go marry and bear children, her husband will take care of her. You and I know that most early marriages the women end up as dropouts, because a man that has the heart to marry a child, of course, they are not marrying you to come and start investing money on you. They're marrying you for you to come and become a property in the family, which is unfortunate. I mean, in some cases, right? So these cultures and religions, just completely ruin a lot of young girls' lives. And today, they can never be anything better, personally. For the families, they're good because they get to expand the families by having children. So, also, there are biases against females participating in certain disciplines like STEM. STEM is science, technology, all those kinds of things, like a girl trying to be a mechanic, a girl trying to, so if she's trying to be a mechanic, or she's trying, even these days, I've seen some Uber drivers that are girls, and, you're like, wow. So if a girl can't be, who told you that? I mean, whoever said that a girl can't be a mechanic and one day find a better way to save fuel, or manufacture something that will save fuel, and that in the long process can save the nation millions, spending or in their budget, those kinds of things. Women can also come up with those, because if she becomes a mechanic and she understands the mechanics of a car, she might also, come up with ways to save costs for the community. Say like the police budgeting 1 point something billion, I'd be 2 point something billion. I think I read that today on fueling their cars. I mean, what if some girl somewhere finds a way for them to come up with better cars that won't use fuel or all those things, even though it's bad for our economy, but we can always have alternatives. Anyway, just an example off the top of my head. So there are biases against females participating in certain disciplines like STEM, politics, and government-related classes. I did have a friend whose father didn't want her to be a lawyer because that would expose her too much. You and I know that most politicians have a law background, mostly. I mean, like Kamala Harris is a lawyer. A lot of people, especially in the international space, are lawyers. So if you first get interested in student government and things like that, and then somehow you get into politics and everything, the father wanted her to be a nurse because as a nurse, when he's sick, she can take care of him. There are people whose husbands won't let them be lawyers. They want them to be teachers. I've seen that too. The husband's argument was that he is a traveling businessman. And if she becomes a teacher, she goes to work at 9 o'clock, comes back at 2 to pick up the kids and then feeds them and all that. That is also good for their family, but then doesn't that also make her say because she wanted to be a lawyer, imagine if she was this great lawyer and then she finds herself in the political space, but the husband wouldn't hear anything of it. So yeah, those biases are still there in 2020. You'll be really surprised. So the husband and the other father of the nurse girl said, well, those positions are usually for males, not for females. Educational barriers can result to high dropout rates and low self-esteem and decreased participation in nation building. When you stop one girl, 2 girls, 3 girls from getting the basic education they need to be able to build their self-esteem and their knowledge on nation building, you don't know how much you've robbed the society. Imagine if a Konjo Iwala's father didn't let her become this professor, and imagine if the husband didn't give her all this support. Today, she wouldn't be WTO DG. Imagine if Dora Akunyili, there are all these women that it's few of them, but then they are loud. There's Dora Akunyili, there's all these women that have gone through these things and they are married with children, but then what it is they have a good support system and great education, and then their spouses support them. So we need to break these barriers so that women can thrive and more of them can come and make us proud the way that these ones before us have actually made us proud. The next point that we'll say that marred women's participation in politics is lack of finance. Of course, we know that in most socio-economic index, Nigerian women lag behind. Nusa, can we go to slide 9? Nigerian women. Next slide. Yes. Okay, so there's lack of finance. In most socio-economic index, Nigerian women lag behind. As a result, funding for political participation is mostly limited. Of course, if you don't have money, how would you print T-shirts and say BDP power? To improve this, governments and political parties must find ways to limit campaign spending. You'll be surprised that even a local government chairman election costs more than ₦1 billion. So in the US, for example, at some point, the campaign spending went out of the roof. It almost made politics only for the rich. Doesn't even matter how you got the money. Nosa, can we turn back to me, please? It doesn't even matter how you got the money, because that's even where the Nigerian political system is going to. That's why even young people can't even get into the campaigns because it's too expensive. But for us to be serious about nation building, we have to find ways as a nation to limit campaign spending. We can find other ways. Just like I can remember for Obama for America, I donated $20. when you have better ways to spread, what is it called? To spread um, raising money for campaigns, it will give anybody the chance to run. So we're saying that governments and political parties must find ways to limit campaign spending. That will even help them get better candidates, because there are people that are at home. There are some women in this case that are at home that can build this nation, that can help build this nation, but because they don't have money, and they don't have the power that the current political state requires, they don't even try to come out. But if we have a better system of campaigning and raising money, then anybody that feels that it can do this job will be encouraged to come out and run. So if we have limits to campaign spending and source of funds for qualified female candidates. Oh wait, to improve this, governments and political parties must find ways to limit campaign spending and source funds for qualified female candidates to contest for public office. Another barrier that women have in this political participation wahala is religious beliefs. So some religious organizations systematically restrict their members, especially women. They restrict them from participation in politics. Religion is one of the problems in Africa. We all know. There are some religions that they don't, because in fact, being a woman in that sect, you can't even speak when the other gender is speaking, not to talk of come out to run for public office. Religion is supposed to help build a nation, build communities, but it's almost like it's doing the opposite of what it should do. This thing that they do where they systematically restrict the members from participation in politics, of course, leads to political drain, because these women that they've completely shut out of the political system, if they didn't shut them out, their ideas could be harnessed, and that could lead to better community development. So we're urging religious leaders to please review their stance on this whole issue of, certain people can't participate in government, especially women. Next, so we're going to slide 11, Nosa. Another thing that bar women from participating in politics. Next slide. Next slide. Another thing that, another political barrier for participation in politics, unfortunately, is violence. Terrorism, wars, rape, physical and mental sanctions are violent ways the female population can be barred from participation in politics. For example, when we talk about terrorism and war and rape and physical and mental sanctions, on April 14th, 2014, a historical thing happened. Unfortunately, it's negative. 276 schoolgirls were abducted from their secondary school in Chibok, Borno State, Nigeria. These girls suffered, and some are still suffering from mental and physical violence from the kidnappers. So you have these kidnappers took these girls. It doesn't mean that there are no boys' schools, but for the most part, this sect believes that, anything Western is bad, especially, the Westerners trying to improve the lives of women. So these girls that were in school were abducted, and completely, you and I know that the girls will never be the same again. what they are going through, what they've gone through, some of them have left the country, meaning that's brain drain, because they get to become hopefully better people. Can you turn back to me, please, Nosa? Hopefully they become better people where they've moved to. I understand some are in the US, and I've seen some on the Oprah show in the US now. Imagine what they get to become, and then the Nigerian society have lost that. Some are still in the hands of their kidnappers, and they'll probably never come out. Some are probably married off now. So things like that, terrorist situations and physical violence and mental violence, those kinds of things in the long run, the odds of them being educated and bold to run for public office, you and I know that is completely low. Even the ones that will get to run, obviously, may not want to come back to Nigeria and run because they found asylum in a Western country, Another political barrier that we have, of course, this one is the most direct for the people that even have the guts to decide to run for political office. The worst of it all is that, okay, you get educated as a woman, you get empowered by your family or your community, and you decide to join a political party. Then the political party starts their own. What do? Now there's weak and corrupt internal party democracy. So basically, most political parties in Nigeria are male-dominated and financed. As a result, it's difficult to secure candidacy tickets for female contenders. In my state now, a senator, female senator, I think it's Uche Kunife, she's campaigning now to be governor of Anambra State. One of her campaign slangs is that it's time for a woman to go, And I've actually heard a bunch of women talk in her support, saying that these men, they've been here for a long time. We need to try a woman. If she succeeds, she will end up being the first democratically elected governor of Nigeria. That should be next year in 2021. But first, she needs to go through the primaries. So, and one of the things she keeps saying in her campaign for the primary is that there's always this internal democracy thing going on, that the men will not accept to give her a ticket. But I personally think that we've gone to that point, hopefully, where the men will shun the gender politics and see and look at her track record in the House of Reps and the Senate, and if it's something that will work with Anambra State, maybe she can be given a trial, at least for tickets, and then she'll have to contend with whoever the other major political parties give their tickets to in Anambra State. That's an example because it's home. But then there's even all these, even not even governorship, there's House of Assembly and a lot of things. I have observed elections around the country, and I've seen a situation where there are candidates and then people make side talks like, this one come out too. I beg, go give your husband food. That kind of thing. First of all, you forget about the fact that she's a lady. For her to even have crossed all these barriers and have decided to come out, check her history. If her history is enough to change the current state of a deploring community, why not give her a chance? These political parties during the primaries, check the history of all sexes that have brought themselves for service, because this is a service that everybody's, forget about the fact that they've turned it into money politics, but we'll still go back to basics, because this politics is service to humanity, service to the community. If she can do this job, let her do it. And, we move forward, because all we want is for our nation to be better than it is now. Basically, today in internal party democracy, when most women, having interviewed a lot of women that have come out to vie for positions, they tell you that once they come out, the men are usually skeptical. They're fine with you being deputy governor or deputy chairman, assistant, or for the most part, they're fine. But when it has to be you on top, then the ego starts coming in. The skepticism comes in, the ridicule comes in, and sometimes, the funny thing, the ridicule also even comes from your fellow women, because sometimes your fellow women might not have that type of opportunity you have to thrive. So what happens? The jealousy comes in, and then it goes into ridicule. So you're not just battling the men in the party, you're also battling the women that don't have the same qualifications that you have. Or sometimes they might even have the same qualifications, but just to get ahead, they join the fold. So there's intimidation. Intimidation comes especially with finance, because, most times the women can't match the kind of money that the men are coming to the political arena with. So they try to intimidate you and your voters with the money they have. There's also objectification. I'm bad with big words, forgive me. There's also objectification. Basically, the whole idea of objectifying a woman, as a sex object rather than a leadership figure, So there's of course manipulation of votes against the women at the political party primary elections. So these are all factors that the kind of bad internal party democracy that's being practiced and all that make these women lose their tickets at the primary level, even stopping them from even coming out to compete. I mean, the Nigerian political space enjoy going into the villages and bringing out the older women to come and vote for them. But then when it's time to actually give the ticket to a female, because if you look at the history, the women voter turnout is usually more than the male voter turnout. So for that, it's not a problem. But to actually give the ticket is usually a problem. So please, we urge political parties to stop skepticism. Stop being skeptical about the female candidates. Stop the ridicule. It's so old. Stop the intimidation, find ways to have financial inclusion, because you end up losing good candidates that will help. Because if your party presents a good candidate, doesn't matter what it is, and you are able to buy the hearts of a lot of your electorate, your party will win. And then if she's a good candidate and she does a good job, your party will always win elections. So you should get past that stage of trying to say, oh, this is a woman, she can't do this. It doesn't matter. I might as well just take the worst man rather than take the best woman because she's the woman. How about we're all human beings? So let's all just find ways to live with one another. Stop the intimidation, stop the objectification and the manipulation of votes against women. Let everybody play on the same field and may the best man win. Nosa, can we go to the next slide, please? So we're going to slide 13. Slide 13. Next one. Okay, so now that we've talked about why should women do this, participate in politics, we've talked about the barriers that stop women from participating in politics. Now we're talking about the way forward. First and foremost, you start from within to cleanse before we come outside. So women must support each other to thrive in all sectors. When you thrive in all sectors, you also thrive politically. So in all sectors means financially, educationally. If you're a school owner, please find ways to have more girls enrolled in your school if they actually come forward to enroll. If you're a religious leader in your community, encourage more women to come into the political arena. if you're in the financial world, encourage female businesses to thrive so that, women will be financially independent to be able to have that zeal to run for political offices. If you're a political person now and you're a woman, encourage more young girls, mentor more young girls to come in and participate in politics so that as you leave, you have other people coming after you that can take over the position of power. So we must support each other to thrive. Number 2 is that families must give their children, no matter the gender, equal opportunity to succeed politically and otherwise. Because there is nothing like capital flight. If you as a father or a mother is sick, your daughter will still travel back and take care of you. If you need money, your daughter will still give you money. Whatever you've trained her to become, she will always be your daughter. Your child is your child. So please give everybody equal opportunity. That she married to Mr. Oluwale does not mean that she'll forget where she came from. You're first the family. You're first her parents. She's never going to forget you. Plus, those are your seeds growing all over the world so that she can become the best of what her God has made her to become. We also urge religious organizations to support the growth of women, as they are also the children of the Almighty God whom they serve. The Almighty God is not stupid. God is very wise. He has made man and woman alike in his own image. Therefore, you can't say, this particular people who are also God's children, they can't thrive. No, everybody has a role to play. So let's merge that role into a government to help all people thrive in the community. Governments must enact and implement, because we already have enough laws, but now we're talking about implementation. That's why the implementation and part is in capital letters. They have to implement laws that protect women from being marginalized politically, starting from the 35% affirmative action that's not being practiced right now. We didn't ask for 16%, we asked for 35%. So governments must please do that, because you can't keep marginalizing people and expecting to thrive. This group of people, the women that you think will have nothing at the table, might actually be the solution to the Nigerian problem. Political parties must shun corrupt and discriminatory internal politics and carry all members along, irrespective of the gender. Because you might decide to play politics with this woman that's very qualified and, rob her of her ticket. Guess what? She can go somewhere else, take that ticket and win you squarely. Your party will end up completely losing. If Donald Trump had known that Kamala Harris on the ticket would have ended his political career before he was ready to end it, I don't think he would have been that brutal in his campaign speeches against her and supposedly Sleepy Joe. So, don't say, this person is less than me. Women these days are getting educated and financially better than before. So don't take them for granted. Carry everybody along, because your party, if a woman wins, your party wins, But in the absence of all these, sometimes the worst kind of success is the one you're waiting for somebody else to give you. Women in Nigeria, if the guy wouldn't give you a space at the table, you create a table for yourself. Then you can decide to invite them to the table. Nosa, can you turn the video to me? I want to say that looking at everybody, I say, my fellow women for Niger, in the absence of political parties supporting you, religious organizations supporting you, families not supporting you, well, women can come together and create and make their own table. This table where they sit down for stool. Now woman make them. Now woman carpenter make them. So we can actually make our own table and decide to invite anybody that wants to sit on it. If they want, they can come and sit. After all, women have the highest voter turnout. So please, nobody should, given the same time and opportunity, every child, every woman is a potential achiever. So we're saying everybody should please, participate in politics so that we can have equity, fairness, justice in the nation, and unity, and our society can thrive politically and otherwise. Thank you very much. So what's the last slide? Sorry, guys. Oh, it's almost 9 o'clock. Next slide. Oh, that's the last slide. So this is love from all of us at the aid. Turn back the video to me.
Thank you very much, Ada. A beautiful one. But I have just a few questions. I thought people were going to call to ask questions, but anyway, since women have the highest voter turnout, would you encourage the women, since they are not given the chance and the opportunity in political parties, will you advise them to form their own women's political party? Do you see that happening anytime soon? That we're having the women's political party?
Well, it might end up being discriminatory, because if we just have a women's political party, it might be discriminatory. So for now, I think we should work with what we have and find there are so many parties that are registered that doesn't really have a membership. So we don't have to register a woman political party, because there are still men that support the idea of women in power. So what we can do is to hijack one of those parties and, register as much people that we can, as much women that we can, and men that are also okay with the fact that a woman can be in power in that party. Because if you just do women, what about the men that support the cause?
But you just talked about if they won't give you the table.
That's what I'm saying, that in the absence of all this, for now,
you create your own table. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
because
I said.
One other thing, the women have the advantage if they have the numbers. And politics is all about numbers. If they have the number and they form their own party,
they do have the number. But that's why I said
at that point, don't you think the men will be now forced to come and negotiate?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said that for the women political party, it should be done after the fact. That's why it was the last point on the way forward. That should be last on our agenda. But for now, we have to negotiate better, to be included in what's already on the table. Then if that doesn't work, then you could go with your own political party.
I see. Okay, cool. So that's an option. Then one more thing too. I noticed a lot of women are scared, and a lot of husbands are scared to allow their wives into politics.
That's because of the primary reason.
Yeah, because of this. Yeah. I remember asking someone to go conduct an interview with a politician, and she went there, and the politician made a statement that, oh, this is your body, and a Senator body, how you go do, and people go, they like this your body. And she ran away. After that day, she's been scared to go before any politician again for interviews. So how would you, how would you advise the women to handle the sexual harassment in politics? Because that's one reason why the husbands don't want their wife to go in there. And that's another reason. It's also a reason why some women too are scared, to go into politics. So how should the women handle this situation of harassment?
It's such an unfortunate scenario. I could have said that woman can call that senator out in public, but she might not also want that type of publicity anyways. So you can either ignore, or the organization sending her could send her and a guy, because she's gone alone. The senator, some of these senators are randy, they don't really have, they are just, women are sexual objects to them. But I think that when the monopoly is broken, like when it's a woman, two women and a man, or two men and a woman, it's more professional because of the kind of what's it called? Because of the kind of society we live in. I think that will decrease the chances of the senator trying to be all sexual. I mean, if he then tries to be all sexual in the presence of everybody, then now we even have a crowd. And in fact, I don't think that for his political office he will even try it. I think that's a way. It's either to ignore, or the organizations, will have to spend more money to send more people so that would dampen their sexual.
But what about in the area of politics now? Assuming a woman wants to run for, a woman wants to become the local government chairman of the local government. And, in politics, you need somebody to recommend you. You need somebody to be like a godfather, somebody to speak, for you. And then I'll say, if you want this, you have to, even because these women, even from the university, they've been going through this. The lecturers want to sleep with them to pass them, So it's become a system. They don't like, some people fall for it, not because they like it, they just fall for it because they have to do it. After they have passed through that, they now become scared. So if I want to, they say it's a man's world. If you want to get into all these men, they will sleep with you before they will give you anything. So how should the women handle that situation? That's one thing that scares them away from politics. So how should they handle it?
The truth is that things that come like that are not sustainable. That's the truth. For you to go into politics, you have to know how to make decisions that are sustainable. It doesn't even matter how long it takes you to get there or how difficult that situation is. First of all is that nobody is one godfather. The people should be your number one godfather. If you have the people behind you, half of your work is done. Because like you said, politics is about numbers. If you sleep with A to get to that position, another big dog in that political party can decide to also hold you down, and then also request for the same thing because men talk, So how many people are you going to sleep with? Times that other people are trying to build on their political career, you're busy thinking you sleep your way in, but that doesn't usually happen. I think that when it comes to that, find that mentor that will see you for you first before anything else. Because what you're selling is what you have to bring to the table. Because a lot of women bring their themselves as women to the table, Or do you understand? A lot of women still don't want to do the work. So when you want to come into that kind of situation, you have to forget about the fact that you're a woman. You first of all remember that you're a person. So you build yourself as a person first. If there are 10 men at that table, you need to get 1 or 2 to believe in your cause as a human being first. Then from there, you get the people. The other people will be forced to align, and sex will be the last on the table. Do you understand my point? I don't know if
Yes, I understand. I remember there was sometime was in the Senate, when a senator and a female senator and a male senator
Tinubu's wife.
Said he was going to say, because he saw her as a sex object, as a woman. That's what, as a woman, he saw her as a sex object. You don't talk when I'm talking, so. Yeah. How should the women? She was brave, she was brave. But how should the women handle such matters?
Well, first of all, if the women in the Senate should have called for that senator to be recalled. The women in his constituency, in a sane society, making that statement will get that senator fired. Because that shows that first of all, you openly admitted to rape. If you can tell a person's wife on national television that you're going to rape her, that means you've raped.
No, he didn't say he was going to rape her. He said he was going to